some further thoughts on the mechanics of pushing and pulling movements. So I made a video where I chatted about how you want to set up well for optimal stabilisation of your shoulder joint when you do a push and a pull movement. And the way to do that, generally speaking, is to lift up through the sternum and retract your shoulder blades. That's where you can derive the most power from that setup. But the need for stabilisation is not necessarily always that important, and it's more and more important the heavier the weight is in comparison to your maximum. So if it's really heavy for you, the stabilisation becomes more important because you can't generate a lot of force unless your muscles are pulling off a stable platform, and also the risk for injury is higher if you don't have good stabilisation when the weight is heavy. So when the weight's not so heavy, that stabilisation and good setup matters less. I want you to feel at liberty to not need to prioritise that optimal setup when the weight's low. So what that means is if you're doing a light weight, so with this sort of pulling movement here, and it's quite light for you, so this would be the most stable setup would be really accentuating the sternum lift and the shoulder blade retraction. But seeing as that's not that heavy for me, I can relax that off a little and that's going to be fine. Also, another thing to bear in mind is that the more your arm comes up, whether it's in this plane generally, the more elevation you have, the more stabilisation you need. So if you're down in this direction, you need less. So you can be quite relaxed through your shoulder blades here, and you're probably going to be fine. Yeah, so the heavier the weight is, and the more you go into these elevated positions, the more you need to prioritise the good setup. Now, another thing to consider is you may be training for your sport, or the thing you want to do. You may not be able to have a good stable setup in your sport. For example, if you're a thrower, you've got specific requirements of your sport that you need to train to match. Or if you're a swimmer, that's an interesting one because you need to be able to pull from this position. You need to be able to, especially internally rotating your shoulder, and you can't always have your shoulder blades pinned right back when you're doing freestyle. It more lives in the middle. It's not fully protracted at the shoulder joint, at the shoulder girdle, but nor is it in that really safe, stable setup position. So it's somewhere in the middle, and you have to be able to learn to pull from there. So for that reason, the swimmer may want to let their shoulder girdle protract a fair bit for their pulling exercises, just because it helps them to match the way they do the movement onto the functional requirements of their sport. I hope that helps and it wasn't an excess of gobbledygook.